So I would appreciate if you could take your seats. So with that, I would like to introduce our panel on this critically important subject of the Black Sea strategy. And let me first start by introducing the members of the panel. I begin with my commissioner, Marta Kos, Commissioner for Enlargement, very invested in this subject. Deputy Prime Minister Vladimir Bolea from Moldova is with us today. Thank you very much. He will be speaking in Romanian, so I do ask you to make sure that you have headsets. We're delighted to have the Minister of Digital Development and Transport from Azerbaijan, Mr. Rashad Nabiev. We're also very happy to have two leaders from the IFI community with us today. Of course, Odile Renaud-Bassot, who is the president of the EBRD, well known to all of you, and Alfonso Garcia Mora, who is the regional vice president of the International Finance Corporation, focusing on the private sector. And last but certainly not least, I'm also very happy that we have a private sector representative on the panel, leading one of Europe's biggest logistics companies, Mr. Jens Lund, the CEO of DSV. Given the importance of the subject, I will also be inviting comments from two deputy ministers who are with us today. Ms. Clara Staiciu, who is the Secretary of State for European Affairs from Romania, and Alona Shkrum, who is the First Deputy Minister for Development of Communities and Territories of Ukraine. So that is a little bit who we have in our distinguished panel. In terms of the subject, I'm not going to give you a long introduction. You, of course, are fully familiar with the initiatives that we have taken, the great cooperation that we have with the countries in the region, the strategic importance of the Black Sea in the new geopolitical context. And on this basis, the Commission, you are fully familiar, launched an important communication with a number of important recommendations. And that's a bit the subject we want to explore further in the panel this morning. So with that, if you allow me, without further ado, I would like to put a first question to Commissioner Marta Kos about the strategic approach for the Black Sea. And I would ask you, dear Commissioner, what you believe is so urgent about this strategy and why it is essential to take this forward at this juncture. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear Hetjan, and good to see you all here to discuss about this very important topic. The world is changing, the geopolitics is changing, the EU is changing, so everything is changing and we have to act quick. And this geopolitical reality has really left us no time. The Russian war of aggression against Ukraine has turned the Black Sea into a geopolitical hotspot of a global magnitude, and a lot is at stake. It is not only about our security, it is about the security of our candidates, and it is about the security of the whole region, South Caucasus region. It is also about global food chains, it is about trade routes, and of course what we have experienced through the aggression of Russia is really that dependencies are blackmailed. Energy sources are used for blackmailing. We have seen this very good in Moldova. We are seeing this in Ukraine all the time, day by day. So we need to further diversify in sectors like energy, transport, digital link, also trade. And one very also important thing is that we have some other crises. For instance, only a few days ago, Odessa became a place of tragedy, not only because of Russian missiles and drones, but because of heavy rain and flooding. So we have to tackle the climate crisis. And I think that, and I'm very happy, this is asking for a swift response. And EU has proven that we can act, that we can really work together, the member states, the international financial organizations, and of course the countries which are on this route. And we have, when I speak about the connectivity, meaning how to connect EU with Central Asia, we have 3 member states on this route, we have 4 candidates on this route. So it is not about only the accession process, but this accession process can be intertwined then with what we do in this Black Sea strategy or connectivity. And I think if we do it right and smart, and this is the goal we have, we could really enhance our trade, energy, digital flows. And one very important point, this wouldn't be possible without the peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This has opened up a lot of doors, and I just came from a mission to both of the countries, and I really see a big interest that we move things forward, that we modernize those routes, that we really, take care of ourselves in the way that it has not been done before. Some would say that we have been pushed very quickly in this situation, also the Europe, that we have to find proper ways how to enable sovereignty of Europe. So, of course, it is about partnership with those countries, but it is also about us. Are we able to tackle those relations on a new level, in the sense that we do it like the best partners, and I think we can.
Thank you very much, Marta, for these insightful comments. You provided a perfect segue to the minister from Azerbaijan, Mr. Rajid Nabiev, by referring to the agreement found in Washington. But more generally, your country, of course, due to its location, is a pivotal hub for connectivity. And it would be really interesting if you could tell us a little bit where you see the priorities in the coming years, given the changes in the geopolitical context.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and privilege to be a part of such a distinguished panel. Well, for Azerbaijan, the first and most important priority is to consolidate our position, not from the geographical standpoint, but to be a bridge between Asia and Europe by enabling the connectivity, and at the same time innovation and also the trust. I think, as you have already mentioned, the trust is the most important part of this equation. If there is no trust there, no matter how your infrastructure is good, no matter how your procedures and processes in place, it's not going to work. That's what we have identified for ourselves, and that's the most important part of our philosophy. Well, and we are pursuing what we call a dual transformation agenda, when we combine our physical and digital connectivity together, because one without other, it's not going to work in our modern world. And on transport side, Azerbaijan has already built a fully integrated multimodal network, which combines together the rail, road, air, and at the same time the sea. It anchored one of the most important ports in the Caspian Sea, the Baku International Sea Trade Port, and alongside with investing into our own perimeter, to our railroads, roads, and etc., we also went beyond our perimeter. I also invested into the infrastructure of neighboring countries. Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railroad is a great example of this. We invested even before, when our partners in Europe envisaged or treated the middle corridor as a main artery. I mean, we have to be honest and transparent that this corridor has always been seen till the last 3 years as an alternative to the northern route. But at that time, Azerbaijan was making the point, I mean, middle corridor could be and should be the main artery connecting east and west. And we, at that time, invested to the Baku-Tbilisi Carsway and other infrastructure projects. And recently, Azerbaijan went and invested additional 100 million USD from its own resources to expand the capacity of Baku-Tbilisi Kars Railroad. The second important infrastructure project that we are doing at the time being is expansion of Alat port. Now the capacity of the port around 10 million, and we're going to, by the year 2030, we're going to expand the capacity to 25 million tons. And we do have a good reason for that, because in the last 3 years, we're seeing the increase of the cargo moving through this port by 5 times. And it's because of the addressing the bottlenecks that we had in terms of infrastructure, but at the same time, Azerbaijan played a crucial role in aligning all the positions of neighboring countries, and specifically Kazakhstan and Georgia, by putting all together, just identifying not the bottlenecks when it comes to the infrastructure, but also where the bureaucratic bottlenecks are. We have already established a tower center called where we planning not for 1 week, not for 10 days, but when we have a planning of the cargo for the 1 month. And that's why last year, that was the first year when we received 270 block trains coming from the China, and this, by the end of this year, this number is going to be 1,000. Just for an example, in the year 2003, we had only 1 block train coming from China. In terms of the number of the days, it took, like in 2022, it took 53 days for cargo train to leave the border of Kazakhstan with China and reach ports of Poti and Batumi. Now we're managing it between 12 and 14 days. And yesterday I was asked by some of your colleagues that would it be possible to reach Mediterranean and Black Sea within the 14 days? The answer is definitely yes, because we're envisaging construction of Zangezur corridor and recent initiating the peace agreement in Washington, actually creating a very good and solid basis for that. When it comes to the digital, we are also addressing this issue in a proper manner. Digital Silkway, the fiber optic cables under the Caspian Sea, is going to create a huge potential on bringing together the east and west, and with all the potential that we have, because now this connection is going through the ocean, and at the same time, still most part of it is going through the northern routes. So, in a nutshell, we do have a vision, and alongside this vision, we do have a plan how we're going to implement this vision.
Thank you very much. Well, that sounds very, very stimulating on the back also of these geopolitical developments. That maybe allows me to ask the Deputy Prime Minister, who just is back from a country that saw a momentous election, successfully completed, country voting for a European future, also a geopolitical development of significance. And I wanted to ask you how you see that development playing out in terms of your connectivity agenda, and what our Black Sea strategy could contribute to the European aspirations of Moldova. The floor is yours.
Bună ziua! Noi în Republica Moldova pe data de 28 am finalizat un scrutin și de partea noastră am avut suportul total din partea Uniunii Europene, care s-a manifestat prin vizite, prin poziționări extrem de tranșante, și vreau să mulțumesc și doamna Kos, care a fost în vizite personale, s-a întâlnit cu cetățenii din Republica Moldova, lucru care a îmbunătățit foarte mult înțelegerea locuitorilor din Republica Moldova ce înseamnă Uniunea Europeană, prin discuții directe, sincere și foarte deschise. Să știți că doamna Kos în Republica Moldova a fost în vizită la familii de oameni din sate și a gătit mâncare de a noastră din Republica Moldova, lucru care a încântat practic toată lumea, și lucrurile astea a apropiat foarte mult înțelegerea proceselor, și nemai vorbind de discuțiile care au avut loc de la om la om, cum ne spunem noi, cei care locuim în Republica Moldova. Acum, nu a fost prima dată când populația din Republica Moldova, într-un mod majoritar, s-au declarat pro-europeni. Noi vorbim despre scrutinul electoral parlamentar din 2021, După care în 2024 în Republica Moldova a fost referendumul, unde iarăși în urma acestui referendum în Constituția Republicii Moldova a fost înscris că vectorul european este o prioritate pentru Republica Moldova și alegerile din 2025, din 28 septembrie, a demonstrat a treia oară că vectorul pro-european este unica direcție posibilă în care Republica Moldova își orientează creșterea sa. Acum, dacă vorbim despre conectivitate și celelalte elemente despre care se vorbește în sistemele de infrastructură, evident că Republica Moldova este o țară în bazinul Mării Negre, în regiunea bazinului Mării Negre, chiar dacă noi nu avem ieșire la Marea Neagră, dar noi avem un port, două porturi, mai bine zis, unul privat și altul de stat, unul se află 450 de metri lineari pe râul Dunărea și al doilea este pe râul Prut, cu ieșire în Dunăre. Și avem abordările multimodale, multidimensionale, trecem de pe segmentul auto pe fluvial, de pe segmentul feroviar pe fluvial, dar importanța acestor două porturi, ea nu este atât de mare pentru Republica Moldova, chiar dacă noi exportăm prin ele cereale, că noi suntem o țară producătoare de cereale și prin canalul Sulina noi avem posibilitatea să ieșim în Marea Neagră și în față avem toată lumea. Avem posibilitatea să ieșim în râul Dunărea și să ajungem în Europa pe segmentul pluvial și asta o să ne ajute în continuare să dezvoltăm comerțul bilateral mult mai responsabil economic. Dar importanța acestor două râuri a fost una extrem de mare când s-a început războiul în 2022 și când s-a început o criză foarte mare pe segmentul de exporturi din partea Ucrainei. Ucraina, o țară puternică cu foarte multe porturi, inclusiv și maritime, în Marea Neagră, a beneficiat foarte mult de suportul acestor două porturi, unul privat și unul de stat din Republica Moldova, pe segmentul de exporturi și importuri. Și aici intervine, din punctul meu de vedere, importanța regională de interconectivitate a tuturor țărilor, cât de mici nu ar fi ele, și a porturilor, cât de mici nu ar fi ele. Și anume războiul, agresiunea Rusiei împotriva Ucrainei a demonstrat cât de important este să dezvoltăm în bazinul Mării Negre toate țările, pentru că ele sunt extrem de importante ca și model de interconectivitate. Este foarte greu să ajungi, spre exemplu, din Ucraina în România, dacă Republica Moldova nu are sistem de drumuri dezvoltat bine, dacă nu are sistem de căile ferate și nu are sistemul portuar sau chiar și aeroporturile. Și viceversa. Noi vorbim despre faptul că Republica Moldova are hotar comun cu zona Schengen, cu Uniunea Europeană, cu România, pe râul Prut, și este extrem de complicat pentru Uniunea Europeană să ajungă în Ucraina dacă Republica Moldova nu are aceleași lucruri dezvoltate. Așa că importanța cu care astăzi abordează Uniunea Europeană dezvoltarea Republicii Moldova, includerea noastră în rețeaua TNT, suporturile din partea Uniunii Europene pentru dezvoltarea hub-urilor multimodale, că vorbim de hub-ul de la Bereș, că vorbim de hub-ul de la Giurgiulești, ele toate sunt în vederea dezvoltării Republicii Moldova și ele toate sunt de importanță regională. O Moldovă cu o infrastructură rutieră, portuară și avia puternică este în interesul tuturor în regiunea bazinului Mării Negre și inclusiv în ceea ce privește Uniunea Europeană. Și lucrul ăsta este extrem de favorabil pentru noi. Noi suntem extrem de recunoscători faptului că am fost incluși în rețeaua TNT, lucrul care ne permite astăzi să atragem fonduri în dezvoltarea rețelelor drumuri rutiere. Noi vrem să extindem portul de stat, care astăzi e pe o suprafață de 64 de ari, portul privat e pe o suprafață de 58 de hectare, să-l extindem ca la gura Dunării să avem noi, Republica Moldova, un complex portuar de minim 100-120 de hectare, care să permită dezvoltarea economică a Republicii Moldova extrem de armonios și, de ce nu, evident, pentru interconectivitatea Republicii Moldova mai bine pe sistemul de transport fluvial și maritim a Republicii Moldova în contextul Uniunii Europene.
Thank you very much for those insights and for underlining how integrated you are, at least in planning terms, already in the EU system. Can I turn now to Odile? You, of course, lead one of the world's most active IFIs. And I wanted to ask you, if you listen to this conversation and you look at it from a financing perspective, how do you see the changes in what can be done in financing as contributing to the success of this Black Sea strategy?
So, first, I think that this region, and it's obvious, and it's always been the case, but I think in the last few years it appeared even more clearly with the war in Ukraine, with the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I mean, it's really at the core, with the evolution of Georgia, it's really at the core of a lot of geopolitical tension, influence, and so forth. But the need and the gateway role of this region, with all the discussion around the middle corridor, how to connect better Central Asia and Europe, and the central role of this region is also very obvious and increasingly important. And the last point, the third point I wanted to make is the new element, which is the peace agreement that has been initialized between Armenia and Azerbaijan, also change a bit. The dynamics and the possibilities open up the options for new infrastructure development and so forth. And EBRD, for the EBRD, this region is at the very core of our mandate because, historically we've been created to invest in particular in this region, and we also started to invest in Turkey a bit later. So between what we do in Ukraine, where we invested last year 2.4 billion and a lot of support for the, supporting export capacities in the grain sector and so forth, was at the core of what we've been doing in the last few years. But also in Caucasus and Turkey, where overall we invested last year 3.5 billion. So for us, these are very important areas for investment. And we see the development of connectivity as a key enabler for economic development and a way to facilitate trade, which is key for all of these countries, to facilitate energy security, as a sort of key element for growth and job creation and in the whole region, and unlocking the potential of all the countries. In terms of what needs to be done and what are the financing opportunities, I think one very important element is to see the overall dimension, not to work, so look at project by project, a bit of road, a bit of railway, but to have the overview of how things link together. Because otherwise, this is the only way to really develop infrastructure efficiently, which is having the overview, because the continuity of the delivery and the consistency of the connection and so forth is absolutely key. And I think that's where the strategy of the EU brings an important dimension, because you have an overview across different countries. The second element is to bring the private sector and to prepare a project where you can bring private sector. PPPs is a very, infrastructure can be a very, very important tools. You also have in telecom, digital, a lot of interest from private sector investment in investors to develop 5G potential and so forth. But this requires the good framework, rule of law, transparency, trust in the institution and so forth. And a lot of work has to be done in different countries. This is a more country agenda, but it's a very important component to facilitate and to unlock investment. And the third element another element I wanted to mention in terms of relation to the infrastructure is physical infrastructure, important, but soft connectivity, cooperation, everything related to customs, digital papers, and so forth is a key element for, and I'm sure you will insist a lot of that, to facilitate trade. You can have the best road, but if you spend 4 hours at the customs, at the frontier, you lose a lot of the benefits of the infrastructure. So I think that's on all these elements we try to contribute positively, working with the countries on the business environment, how to facilitate a private sector investment, how to create trust in the environment so as to create incentive for investment, but also of course, the infrastructure financing and the soft connectivity agenda, which is a key element.
Thank you very much for that. You already referred to the role of the private sector. Now I'm delighted that Mr. Lund is representing the private sector on our panel. You hear the calls from leaders for the private sector to step up and get involved and help the strategy to be realized. Odile gave you some pointers what we think is important. What is your view? What would you advise us to do to get the private sector to really step up?
I think I can start a little bit about giving a little bit of perspective what we are doing, what we have done. So we are the world's largest freight forwarder, and we are present in more than 90 countries where all the global trades are. It's a very fragmented market. We have 6.5% market share. So of course our industry needs consolidation, like many other industries do, and we need to consolidate also here in Europe, so that we have some of the leading players in the market. Of course, we're then facing also these geopolitical crises. So we used to have a northern corridor through Russia. We actually had also significant infrastructure in Russia. We have discontinued this work. And of course, our customers that want to move freight from the Asia-Pacific region to Europe, and this is a very important part of this gateway as well, because that will pay for some of the infrastructure that you're trying to create at the end of the day. So what do we do today? Well, of course, we go around the Cape. We can't really pass the Red Sea because we have the situation down there where they fire missiles at the vessels, so the carriers won't go that way. But we also have solutions where we, let's say, move cargo either to Singapore or to the Middle East and move it via air freight because of speed. And this is one of the great advantages of this corridor, that it can provide some speed. And this is very important in a supply chain. There's cargo that can pay for slow speed because it isn't very valuable. Then there's cargo that can pay for, let's say, middle speed. That could be this corridor. And then, of course, it's the air freight that is for the more fast-paced. And, of course, you'll also, within these different areas, have different levels of, what can I say, so you could have express air freight where it moves today, or it can move within a week, so there are different service levels. So, as you rightfully said, you have to have an end-to-end thinking, because the customer, they would like to know, when does my cargo arrive, and can I count on it? It's a little bit like when you get a parcel at home. It's the same thing the customer, they want to do. They would like to be planning around it. So this certainty. And this certainty then, if we have to go into an area, goes back to all the things that you talked about. In many emerging markets, I'll not mention any specific, we need customs formalities that function. We also need stable environment around them. We pull out from markets where we have to do facilitation payments in order to do customs, because we can only do business in a transparent way, so we pull out. We don't believe in that we have to have some kind of an economy next to the real economy that doesn't function. This is very important compliance. It's also very important when we deal with the authorities that it's a secure regulatory framework that we can trust, so that we don't all of a sudden get a tax audit and don't understand what it's all about, because then we can't really run the company in a good way. Also stable currencies, very important. Then I think it's also that the private ownership, that we can control the units that we have, really, really important as well. And then, of course, the efficient infrastructure itself, that it's planned, it's being developed, that we can count on it. Because our investors, when they give us money, they would like a return. It's actually your pensioners, so it's your own money. So we have to allocate capital into a safe environment when we invest. And then, of course, we're business people. We're the world's market leader. If there's business, we will come. Don't worry about it. I think that's a few words from my end.
Very good. It's good to hear that if there's money to be made, you will come. That is reassuring, because it's such a huge potential. We heard about potential throughput times of 2 weeks, potentially, in the longer run. Now, Of course, that requires private sector-oriented finance, and I'm delighted that Alfonso is with us, representing an institution that is a pioneer in this field. So if you listen to this, what can you advise us we should do in terms of financial solutions that are commensurate with what the private sector wants?
Thank you, Koopman, for inviting us and for the question. So I wanted to take one step back because infrastructure is absolutely key, and connectivity in the Black Sea. But I would like also to bring another angle, no? Because at the end of the day, connectivity is to achieve something. And if we look at one data point, which is intra-regional trade among the Black Sea countries, it is less than 20% of the total exports of these countries. So it's tiny. It's the same problem that we have, taking my other hat, in Central America. Same type of problem. Super low intra-regional trade because there is no connectivity between the countries. And the loss opportunity that it represents is huge for these countries. So just connecting, just facilitating the connection, either energy, transport, digital, any of the three, will really help to achieve or to increase this ratio, which is a clearly economic outcome that we can achieve. And the second is the job market, employment, what Odile was mentioning before. I mean, in the last 10 years, less than one, I mean, out of each two people that actually came into the labor market, less than one had a wage job. So we have a job problem, very big job problem in this market. And only 50% of the population is in the labor market. So with this, in my view is that the potential to grow in these countries is huge if we really think about it more holistically. And that's why the strategy that you have just launched in the European Commission is very timely, is very good, because it gives us the space, the framework to really think broader. No? So having said that, the needs are huge. The amounts of money that we need to develop this connectivity, these are super big investments. The public sector will never be able to finance it with the fiscal position that they have, and therefore we need to bring the private sector. But we need to prioritize where to bring the private sector and how to start to doing all these infrastructure investments. No? And here we see three key aspects, no? Or three key pillars. No? The first one, as we mentioned, I think Odile also referred to that, is the business environment. No? We need to have the right business environment. We will never have the perfect business environment. We don't have it in any country in the world. But it is okay. We know what are the minimum things and the minimum conditions that we need. Thinking, for instance, on energy. I mean, we need to bring tariffs to cost recovery. We need to link the renewable energy to the grid. So we need to create the space for the private sector to come in. If we don't have a cost recovery tariff on the energy sector, it's very difficult to bring the private sector because they will not see the bankability of the project, and therefore they will not be able to pay to the pensioners what they have to pay. This is a very small example, no? Or developing capital markets, as we are doing in Georgia. No? We need that. If we don't do that, it will be impossible for the commercial banks to finance or MDBs to finance all that is needed. So working on the fundamentals on this business environment, I believe, is critical. The second one is project development, and there we work very closely as well with EBRD, no? Thinking on upstream projects, thinking on how we can bring this big infrastructure, minimizing the role of the public sector or the financing of the public sector, and creating a catalytic, I would say, equity investments for the private sector to come in. No? And there I think there are huge opportunities that we have not tapped yet. There are many more opportunities. We have worked quite a lot. We are working quite a lot on imports on many different countries, but there is much more than can be done with PPPs and concessions. No? That is also part of the state-owned enterprises reforms and rethinking what is the role that we think that the public sector should have. No? And then my last point, and this is very at the core of the EC, of course, is the risking. We know that the perception of risk is huge in this part of the world. Is probably the perception higher than the real risk, and for that the GEMS database that we have published actually give us those numbers. No? The perception of risk is normally much higher than the real risk that actually we have in these countries, and therefore structures, guarantees like the European Commission help us to really de-risk these investments and bring a private sector and multiply the potential financing that we need for these big investments. No? Because as I started, I think that these are very big numbers. I mean, the magnitudes that we are talking about are totally non-feasible to be achieved by one public budget here or there, or even with one MDB working on a small project here or there. No? We really need a much more comprehensive approach, and that's why I would like to congratulate for the strategy that you have published.
Thank you, Alfonso. Now I want to pivot back to the Commissioner. You've listened to this debate. Quite a few recommendations, a lot of compliments, I think, about the strategy. Can you maybe react to what you've heard and tell the audience how you see the EU's value added, our contribution to addressing these challenges?
No, it was really nice listening to get, praise for what we are doing, but there are many layers of this cooperation. And I think that, sometimes or many times we hear that the EU is bureaucratic, that it is slow. But on the other side, we are a predictable and reliable partner. Yesterday, and you have also said, Mr. Minister, it is about trust. If I trust an institution or somebody, I'm more willing to do business with it or invest the money. And what EU can offer is really a kind of legal certainties or predictabilities, which are very much important for the businesses. Of course, we need the political coverage. This is important, but what I see now is this, more and more discrepancy between how EU is doing or treating the partners or the neighbors and the far neighbors, and let's say the autocratic system. It's interesting story, from when I was in Moldova, and I have visited Gagauzia, where they have voted last year for more than 90% pro-Russian. And I talked to more than 150 mayors, and of course they all wanted to have our money, but then I asked them, but okay, I understand you want our money because you need a school or a healthcare system, but now tell me how your municipality has voted for more than 90% for Russia. So what has Russia given to you? And then, you should have seen this scene, and it was 5 seconds, nothing. And then one very brave lady stood up and said, they bought our votes. This is just an anecdote in the sense of what I want to say. What we are doing, when we go into the partnerships, we want our partners to thrive, to be economically developed, to be equal partner. Because only if you are equal partner, then this is the best basis for businesses to thrive, for the prosperity and security. On the other hand, we have autocratic systems who do not want their neighbors to be strong. Why? Not strong economically, not democratically, because if they go this way, they will not be able to control them. And this is for me one of from the political point of view, what the EU can offer. We are really doing this with a mind developing partnerships, building trust, not only to the politicians, to the business society, but also what we have heard from the Deputy Prime Minister from Moldova. It's really about the people. And this is something what I see a big potential also through the Black Sea strategy and connectivity. Sometimes we really think too much in how much money, which projects, which infrastructure. Everything is important. But under the line, it's people doing this and connecting people. Diversity, it has always been one of the most important bases of our EU. And one more thing, what is EU doing? We also got the question, why do you invest so much in Moldova when we have signed the 1.9 billion growth plan for Moldova? This is exactly why. And just coming back to the infrastructure, investments in the infrastructures are very important. Switzerland 200 years back has been a very poor country. Then they consciously invested in infrastructure. Today they are one of the most successful economically, one of the most innovative, if not the most innovative. But in Switzerland, you can come with a public transport system up to 3,000 meters because they care. And this infrastructure has enabled many things after.
Thank you very much. The importance of infrastructure and benefits for people. The bottom line is people, not money. That is basically the way we see it. Could you, Minister Nabiev, talk a little bit about how your government is supporting that and where you see the potential benefits for the people in Azerbaijan, but also how the government is helping this strategy to come about.
Probably I will take the point about the private sector and how the government is actually helping the private sector. Ultimately, it's all about the people. The philosophy we have on our end that the best and most important thing the government can do for the businesses, just step aside and let the business do their business. Yeah? But if you decide to help the business, you have to find the ways how to de-risk the processes, and at the same time make sure that how you can catalyze the process. And we see our role in building the proper and predictable framework in place, because as we hear from the private sector, they want the very predictable environment, they want transparency, and as we hear, they want all the projects to be bankable. Once the project is bankable, it says everything about the future of these or other ventures. When it comes to the real projects that we have implemented with the private sector is as following. When it comes to the railways, for example, we have to acknowledge the fact that none of the private sector players will not probably invest into the hard infrastructure. They will not build the railways as the roads, probably. At least in our part of the world, because of some certain unpredictabilities and etc., etc. But there are still the ways how you can work with the private sector. For example, we fully liberalized rolling stock market. Now, around like 70% of the rolling stock in our country does belong to the private sector. Yeah, government takes the risk of building the roads, but at the same time creating the opportunity for the private sector to make the business. Because we honestly believe that private sector is much more innovative and they can bring much more value to the game at a specific point in time. And that's actually happening. The other example would be, I heard here Tom Chairman saying about the importance of the PPP. We have adopted PPP legislation 2 years ago, and we are seeing initial results. For example, one of the biggest airline companies, not only in Azerbaijan but in the region, Silkway Cargo, is building the biggest cargo airport in free port of Alat. Now the full capacity in Azerbaijan is around 300,000 tons, but they're bringing it up to 1 million tons. So what we are doing, we're providing them with the infrastructure, and they're building their own terminals and the airport on top of it, and that actually closes the whole chain. We have seaport, we have train, we have road infrastructure, and the airlines is going to add additional value and bring the value in this supply chain. So once again, I mean, putting framework in place, making sure that you have all the means to make sure that this framework is applicable and durable, and also if there is a need to have additional sweeteners, as, for example, we introduced Alat Free Economic Zone, where the legislation is very private sector oriented. That's except the certain elements in our legislation, they have a very specific legislation being applied there, and that's actually being very much attractive in the recent years for private sector.
Thank you very much for that. A wide range of instruments to facilitate private sector investment benefiting the people ultimately. I wanted to ask Odile, she talked also about some of these framework conditions, and they seem to overlap to a large extent also with what was said by our private sector representative. But very concretely, you also talked about the importance of looking at the middle corridor in its entirety, because at the end of the day, the effectiveness of the corridor is as strong as the individual links. So how can the EBRD contribute to such a more holistic, integrated perspective on the corridor to drive forward investment?
So we've worked with the Commission and supporting the Commission in looking at on the Central Asia part, so Trans-Caspian, Trans-Caucasus, no, sorry, Middle Corridor, yeah. And to look at all the different options, the different components, the cost, with I mean, not a detailed feasibility study, but really the overall cost and comparative options. And I think this was, and it was a very good way, first of all, to look at the challenges and the opportunities, but also to bring the countries together. And in Central Asia, countries were not necessarily, I mean, we came from a period of time where there were a lot of tension among countries and not a high level of cooperation. This is changing. This has been changing in the last few years. And having forum with the EU where we had this discussion on what are the priorities, what are the different options in railway, in roads, have this overall approach and discussion was very useful in order to prioritize what is, at each country level, but also looking at the connection between the different countries. And I think this is in Caucasus the same. Things need to happen. I think the Commission is really thinking very hard about that. Also how to facilitate that and have this overall mapping exercise, and which then it gives, because of course everything is not planned. I mean, you can have the priority TNT, transport network priorities and so forth, which is a very useful tool, but you still have some decision to be taken at the country level and sometimes by investors. But if you have this strategic overview of the roadmap, it's very useful to trigger investment. And we as a bank, for example, will have this strategic overview and then decide that we can contribute to this part of the road and another institution to another part of the road and the country or private investment to another connection. So this requires to work together with the Commission and with other partners, and we've been, IFIs are really looking at this together, co-financing with IFC, with Asian Development Bank, EIB, but also offering to the private sector this global vision, that what we are aiming to and so forth. And we see, for example, you made the point that, the Minister made the point that there are different areas where private sector can be more active or less. I mean, it's easier to bring in concession or to bring in private investors in port, for example. There is a huge interest in port. We see that we have worked with IFC on the concession in the Ukraine port in Chornomorsk. A lot of interest from big international port operators, and it's the same in Georgia List. We have also this approach. So this is another way, but to invest in port, you need to know that there is an infrastructure, railway connecting to being able to transport your delivery. So I think that this strategic global mapping and having a clear roadmap with all partners where we want to go is the key, a key element to unlock public and private investment. It's the same in energy sector. The region has a huge potential in offshore wind, for example. But you need, and then you can bring private investors in the energy generation, renewable, and so forth. It's an area where you have a lot of interest. But you need to have grids at national level, but you also to have grid interconnection between countries. And having this country by country but regional approach is absolutely needed, because this is where you know also that you will be able to export your energy, and it will contribute to attract investors, but also energy security for the whole region.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Lund, you spoke about the importance of business looking at whether there are returns. Now, one very important concept here, of course, is risk-adjusted returns. And Alfonso was saying that the risks are probably lower than perceived, but still there are risks. What do you think we could do to help mitigate those risks, especially on the Black Sea?
I think if we sit and look at it, we are not necessarily afraid of going into areas. If there's also a potential upside, we would normally adjust in the way that we would allocate capital to those areas. Because doing business is also being a little bit opportunistic. And sometimes we actually do make investments where they turn out to be wrong. And that's part of the thing. But I think, of course, if we sit and look at it, sometimes in these areas, if we want more risk, to be taken by the companies, it might be that there has to be some kind of a structure where the higher the risk is, of course, the more we would like in return, and then it's not going to be viable. So it's like a snowball. You have to get it rolling. So I would suggest, not necessarily for us, but for the route itself, that there's allocation of capital, which there is from the EU, so that all the different touch points there will be, that they are fairly competitive in the beginning, so that the cargo starts to flow. When the cargo flows, there will be money, but it's always this startup that has to be there. So if we see that, then we don't necessarily control the infrastructure, we move the freight. So if the customer will move the freight if it's attractive. It has a very attractive lead time, so you have an asset. It's a very attractive lead time if we can make it work and there can be sufficient volume on it. Mm. So we used to move hundreds of thousands of containers through Russia. We move 0 today. So this cargo has to go somewhere else. So now it goes around the Cape, or it goes to sea air, we call it, so it goes to Dubai and flies to Europe. So this is a very attractive one that you can do. So you have very good. Then we are eager. That's why I'm here. To get in there. I don't necessarily want to call for money for us, because we will move the freight if the thing is there and if it functions. Then the customers, they will pay for it. I'm quite sure about that. But that you make sure that the infrastructure is there. And one thing that I really thought about, I felt ashamed I didn't say myself, but it's people. So either the commissioner, it's young people that are talented that we educate, it's politicians that have the courage to take some of those decisions, because also other voters, they would want money. But we have to invest, and I thought also it was so right what you said, Commissioner, about we would like to have equal partners. This is our culture. We would like to win together with people. I actually think we say this way too little. Many countries and many people that I do business with, they would like to win over you. It isn't sustainable in the long run. That drives a lot of conflict. So I thought I was very well said. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. So that brings us to thinking about how these equals work together, because that is essential to create this integrated route. And I wanted to ask Mr. Bolea, based on the experience Moldova has with building such partnerships across different countries, just to give an example, the Common Maritime Agenda for the Black Sea involves many partners. Moldova was quite instrumental in bringing them together. What lessons do you draw from that experience for what we need to do here on this middle corridor in terms of bringing equal partners together?
Foarte bună întrebare. Dar aș vrea să încep cu ce au vorbit colegii mei antevorbitori și doamna Cos. Eu am avut o lună de campanie electorală, că am fost în toate, cred că peste 150 de întâlniri, și una dintre problemele de bază pe care le-am constatat noi în Republica Moldova și s-a confirmat, noi până în 2021 am pierdut aproximativ 1.200.000 de cetățeni ai Republicii Moldova. Și mă bucur foarte mult, chiar dacă suntem la un panel în care vorbim despre infrastructură, să pun un accent atât de puternic pe oameni. Pentru că infrastructura, cât de dezvoltată nu ar fi ea, dacă nu există oameni, ea este o lipsită de sens în totalitatea ei. Și eu mă bucur foarte mult că noi nu vorbim numai despre canalizare, porturi, căi ferate, apeducte și sisteme de aprovizionare cu containeri, dar vorbim despre oameni și accentul suprem. Și eu cred că asta este una dintre abordările cele mai corecte pe care le are Uniunea Europeană și le educă noi în politicieni în țările care tind a deveni membri ai Uniunii Europeană. Acum, în ceea ce privește Găgăuzia, autonomia noastră, acolo avem 25 de sate și 3 orașe, sunt 68.000 de locuitori, oameni frumoși, un popor turcic, cu niște tradiții extraordinare, cu mâncări gustoase, cu cultură deosebită. Dar, din păcate, o nemeri sub influența Federației Ruse, sperăm în timp să ajungem la sufletele și spiritele lor. Dar ceea ce nu înțeleg foarte mulți încă în Europa de Est e că investițiile fără reforme nu poartă caracter sustenabil. Dacă nu ai făcut reformă în sistemul judecătoresc, dacă nu ai făcut în sistemul educației, dacă nu ai făcut reformă în sistemul drepturilor omului, dacă tu nu le-ai perceput ca niște normalități, că toți oamenii din țara ta sunt egali, femeile și bărbații sunt egali, toate minoritățile sunt egale, atunci, din punct de vedere sustenabil, țara nu se va dezvolta și oamenii vor pleca din țara ta. Chiar dacă vor fi drumuri frumoase, dacă vor fi orașe frumoase, oamenii nu vor rămâne acolo unde nu sunt libere. Și în acest considerent eu consider că modul în care este promovată reformele de către Uniunea Europeană este unicul corect. Nu numai investiții brute sub formă de bani, ține bani și construiește drumuri, dar abordarea, dezvoltarea societății și a oamenilor este una extrem de corectă. Asta este ceea ce cred eu și cred colegii mei și asta au demonstrat și moldovenii ca popor, că aproape 51% consideră că este o normalitate să avem și reformele și mai mult ca atât oamenii din Moldova cer aceste reforme. Acum, dacă vorbim despre interconectivitate și modul în care noi astăzi avem o dezvoltare a relațiilor cu Ucraina și România. Noi suntem între două țări frumoase, cu România noi suntem un singur popor, o singură națiune, chiar dacă suntem două țări diferite. Noi, istoric, întotdeauna am fost o singură națiune, chiar dacă istoric am trăit în diferite perioade, în diferite imperii, sub diferite ocupații. Cu Ucraina suntem un popor apropiat care ne leagă foarte multe relații și pe teritoriul Republicii Moldova cea mai mare minoritate etnică sunt ucrainenii. Avem iarăși relații extraordinar de bine și puternice puse la punct și iarăși, atunci când noi vorbim despre interconectate și relații între aceste state, ele erau aproape zero. Zero. Și a fost o mare nefericire și o mare necaz care trăiește și Ucraina astăzi și noi dorim pace și victorie în acest război, dar anume acest război ne-a arătat că noi nu avem o interconectate pe segmentul de drumuri, pe căi ferate și poduri cu Ucraina. Cât de ciudat n-ar fi, chiar dacă avem un hotar comun, noi nu avem și de-abia vorbim despre podul de construit de la Iampil și noi nu avem drum până la acel pod. Noi ne-am dat seama că cu românii noi nu avem poduri construite în ultimii 60, niciun pod nou peste râul Prut. Chiar dacă avem din 91 până în 2021, am avut aproape 30 de ani de dezvoltare a unui stat democratic, dar noi n-am schimbat nici măcar stratul de asfalt pe podurile existente spre România, spre Uniunea Europeană, ca să înțelegeți nivelul de interconectivitate. Și atunci noi am elaborat cu România un program amplu de construcție a 5 poduri noi. Pe data de 26 aprilie, anul curent, noi am început primul pod să-l construim de tip autostradă, va fi captul autostrăzii A8 pe care o construiește România spre Republica Moldova și într-un an și vreo 6 luni, în 2026, el va fi finalizat. Adică, practic, și celelalte 4 sunt în proces de studii de fizabilitate și vor urmea să fie construite. Toate aceste lucruri vorbesc despre interconectivitate. Ne mai vorbim despre căile de solidaritate, Solidarity Line, care au fost promovate de Uniunea Europeană în suportul poporului ucrainean, care au trecut pe teritoriul Republicii Moldova spre România. Iarăși, în baza acestor linii de suport, noi am primit suport de dezvoltare a căilor ferate a noastre, pe care folosesc astăzi și Republica Moldova, și Ucraina, și România, și Uniunea Europeană când merg spre Ucraina. Cred că concluziile care noi le-am tras în urma acestor întâmplări extrem de nefericite este că noi trebuie să fim un tot întreg. Abordarea trebuie să fie una strict regională. Suveranitatea, ieri la partea prima conferință se vorbea despre suveranitatea țărilor. Suveranitatea țărilor se întărește, din punctul meu de vedere, nu prin construcția de garduri, dar prin interconectarea țării tale în regiune, tu devii mult mai puternic. Atunci când tu faci o parte componentă a regiunii cu drumuri, căi ferate, aeroporturi, tu ești o parte puternică a unei alte părți puternice, un tot întreg. Dar separarea sau construcția de ziduri între țări duce întotdeauna la un stat foarte slab și extrem de pustiu și trist din punctul meu de vedere. Așa că noi vrem să continuăm pe linia de Solidarity Line, să construim în Republica Moldova căile ferate, care suntem și să le interconectăm cu România. Vrem să deschidem cel de-al 3-lea pod feroviar, pentru că Republica Moldova are 3 poduri feroviare, Giurgiulești, Fălciu și Ungheni, 2 funcționale, al 3-lea urmează a fi până în decembrie dat în exploatare și noi suntem foarte mult interesați în interconectarea Republicii Moldova pe toate segmentele, la tot ce înseamnă Uniunea Europeană. Și împreună cu Ucraina să mergem pentru a putea fi un tot întreg în bazinul Mării Negre.
Thank you very much. I think now is the moment to bring in two countries to which you referred as critical partners on the Black Sea strategy. Romania and Ukraine are part of this region. We have two representatives in the audience who kindly offered to contribute. And I think it's important to start with the only representative of an EU member state, a riparian member state of the Black Sea, so Clara Staiciu. I would like to give you the floor. I'm going to give you a microphone so that you can contribute. Could you give us your view on what you have heard and how Romania sees this?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you all for your contributions. And I would like to thank you for organizing this panel. The Black Sea has been a strategic priority of Romania for as long as I can remember. I've been a diplomat for the Romanian MFA for more than 20 years, and I hardly remember any intervention I had where I didn't mention the Black Sea. So this panel happening today already for us, it's wonderful news. And your contributions also are wonderful news, so thank you very much for organizing this and for your contributions. I can only fully agree with Commissioner Kos when she said that the stability and security of the Black Sea region is essential not only for coastal states, but also for European security and stability, and even beyond. Our region is of strategic importance and links Europe with the South Caucasus and Central Asia, and serving as a major transit corridor with a strong impact on improved food security, energy trade, resources, and connectivity. And I am also very happy to have heard what the private sector said, and I think that there is our job in the public sector to make sure that there is money to be made so that the private sector comes and seizes these opportunities. Improved connectivity will serve as a driver for peace and prosperity in our region and beyond. And this leads me to the importance of a swift start of the implementation of the Black Sea strategy. Strategic approach, I say briefly strategy. Connectivity is an important pillar of this strategy, and we are looking forward to the implementation of the dedicated flagship program, the connectivity agenda, that I hope will grow and will come to life. So from this point of view, coming back to the Gateway, Global Gateway Forum, we think that there should be an enhanced synergy between EU's strategic approach and for the Black Sea region and the Global Gateway strategy, which is a key tool for having infrastructure. And in this endeavor, we do not have to ignore the importance of regional cooperation, which is essential for both the EU strategy and Global Gateway projects. About connectivity, there is a lot that has been said. I would like just to mention a few points. First, from our side, it's important to have multiple connectivity routes in the region as a network. And here, TEN-T is an inspiration that we should look at. And why? Because first, we need all regional partners to benefit from it. And secondly, because we want to increase the resilience of logistic chains. And this is a lesson that we've learned the hard way after the Russian invasion. Another point that I would like to make is that investments in connectivity projects, and here I refer to transport, electricity, digital, is essential for the resilience and security not only of our region but beyond. So here, like Gert-Jan mentioned, we really need to look at all the corridors. And of course, I cannot go without mentioning the importance of the port of Constanța, which is an essential hub in the field of connectivity, both in terms of the Trans-Caspian corridor and in relation to Ukraine's future reconstruction process. And here I have to put my enlargement hat on. I cannot go without. And I really need to mention the benefits for the two candidate countries, Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova, of us having success in the implementation of the strategic approach and also in implementation of the Global Gateway Forum project. Two more points, I promise, so that Gert-Jan doesn't regret giving me the floor. First one is that a holistic approach is needed when we talk about the Black Sea region, and from people to hard routes and also to security, we really need to look at security, prosperity, connectivity, and environmental protection in an integrated way. And as a conclusion, I would say that we need to step up cooperation, and we really need to accelerate the development of connectivity projects in the Black Sea region, despite the context we are in and despite Russia's aggression against Ukraine. On this, I think that I can give it to Ukraine to continue.
Thank you very much. Please, Alona Shkrum, First Deputy Minister.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's an honor to speak to you, and it's an incredibly important discussion for us. For us, historically, the Black Sea was always more than just a sea or more than a pile of water. For us, it was our gateway to the world, really, like the gateway that Ukraine had. And I think that now, in times of war, this gateway to Asia, this gateway to Europe, it has become even more important. So before the full-scale invasion, 40% of all of our trade that we had went through the ports of the Black Sea. Right now, if you could guess how much it is 60%. So it is a paradox because certain other gateways are closed, certain other transit corridors are closed, so actually the trade rose to 60% through the ports of the Black Sea. And when we had Russia blocking the ports of the Black Sea, it was always also the ports of Danube River that were mentioned here that helped us do the strategic export. For us, the military base of Russia in the Black Sea, I think it's the dark elephant in the room that we have to mention always, because there could be no free trade, there could be no free navigation without the security. And this is what is important. But nevertheless, together with you, together with the help of all of the partnerships, we, even in times of war, managed to do incredible results. Solidarity lanes is one of the first, this big result, and more than 200 million tons of goods were transferred through solidarity lanes since 2022. And actually, if we count the amount of export and import done by solidarity lanes, it's more than 260 billion euros. It's an incredibly impressive figure. Another initiative, grain initiative, when Russia blocked the Black Sea, it was also done together with possibilities from all of you, with the help of all of you, plus Turkey, plus the UN, all of the countries present here, and it allowed us to reopen the ports of the Black Sea and then actually export grain to Africa, Asia, and other countries that would have had hunger if we would not have done that. Talking about the horrible situation at the wartime right now, when the ports are constantly bombed, we still manage to do PPP projects. Again, thank you for mentioning that. So we are doing the first concession of the port of Chernomorsk, the first end container terminal. It's done by IFC and EBRD, who help us in that. And it could be potentially the biggest investment project into Ukrainian port infrastructure. We were not sure that we have to start it now in times of war, when the ports have been blocked sometimes, when the ports have been threatened, when there is blackmail from Russia forces, when the ports have been bombed. But the interest of the companies all over the world was so overwhelming that actually it's going forward, and we are right now doing the commission on the concession, and I think it could be an incredible example of incredibly successful investment project, and we are keen to do it as transparent and as successful as possible with your help. But I will come back to security. Because without security, there can be no Black Sea strategy. I'm sorry to say that. We are talking a lot about the Global Gateway Forum, and the global strategy on the Black Sea and Mediterranean. But right now, when Crimea is a military base and Black Sea is becoming, in a way, Russia military playground, it's very difficult to talk about investment. Commissioner, of course, you mentioned predictability. There can be really no predictability without security, and the same goes for private investment. The private investment are interested and will come, but will not stay without the security issue. So the last thing that I wanted to add, that according to our information, actually the Russian Shadow Fleet is coordinating better than ever. Russia is modernizing the Shadow Fleet, and the question is what we can do and what we should do. Well, obviously we talk about the big picture, but here I think it's also very important to talk about concrete things that we can do. The actions of EU and US on stopping the Black Fleet could be better coordinated. And we have ideas how to do that. And also we need a technical system to monitor and control the movement of the Russian shadow fleet in Baltic and in Black Sea. It could be done. We're developing such systems that could be done with naval drones. And you know that Ukrainians are quite good with drones. But those are political decisions that need to be taken to ensure security, predictability, and stability in the Black Sea. Because the Black Sea must be free of Russian military threat. And it could and must become, for us all, a sea of prosperity, a sea of economic cooperation, and a sea of the global gateway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think by bringing in the security dimension, you have pointed to one of the very important pillars of the Black Sea strategy. We have focused a lot on connectivity, but the first pillar is about security, and of course the two are intensively linked. I also believe that the example you gave of a concession being awarded during wartime speaks to the point that Mr. Lund was making, that business is willing to take risks if the returns are there. But there is a bigger story here, of course, which has to do with your fight for the country against Russian aggression, which I think is also motivating many people in this room. Could I now maybe... not sure Mr. Lagodinsky would want to come in, but you do represent the European Parliament, and I think it's important for everyone here to realize that your institution, of course, is going to play an incredibly important role in rolling out this strategy. So I don't know whether you would have any comments on this. Could the hostess please pick up the mic from... she has a mic. Very good. So could I invite you maybe to make a comment if you so wish?
Thank you very much, and it's very nice of you as institutions who join forces in this area. Maybe just very briefly, and this is something which you and also Commissioner Kos are hugely supporting, is the role of Eastern Partnership in this whole equation. The fact that we are meeting in a couple of weeks in Armenia, the fact that we are also have invited and are quite successful so far, also Turkey to join us on the parliamentary level to advance the interparliamentary dialogue, because I think, and this is our conviction, is that interparliamentary framing of this is hugely important. Talking with our partners from the Ukrainian parliament, the co-president of Euronest, Ivan Krulko, is an important figure. I think that this dimension generally is something where we should be advancing, where we are advancing, and while I'm hearing about investments, I'm hearing about the executive leadership, I think that the legislative leadership should be an essential part of it, and we are looking forward to continuing joining forces on this and doing it strategically, not just, as many think in terms of resolutions of the European Parliament. No, a joint strategy of supporting what you're doing.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear the strategic support from the European Parliament, which will be critical in this regard. I would now like to open it up to the floor for a few questions or comments, perhaps, before giving our panelists a chance to make a concluding statement. So if you would like to come in, could you please raise your hand, and then you'll be given the microphone. Who would like to take the floor? Is there anyone who would like to come in at this stage? Yeah. Yes, please. Could you please identify yourself?
Yes, so actually I'm advisor to Sergei, because I didn't see that someone wanted to raise the question, but I have a direct comment, actually. I'm seeing for the first time the risement of the real soft power of the European Union actually right now, with the whole Black Sea strategy. I'm from Bulgaria, and I know what does it mean to have the Russian influence within the whole Balkan region, and not just the Balkan region, but the whole Eastern Europe. And I'm so happy that we can actually something to propose to the Eastern neighborhood, to the other countries as well, while we have Putin's Russia that just want to suppress the other countries, that can actually propose something strategically and something that would be in favor for the national interests of these countries. I think, and this diplomatic manner, this very constructive manner from the side of the European Union is something that we need to have actually. It's a very good starting point, and I hope that we will manage to succeed and to propose the new vision of the real cooperation that the EU will lead there. So full support. Thanks a lot for this. Sharing the next speech or something to someone else.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to come in at this juncture? I see a hand, a lady in the middle. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Elske from Klingendahl Institute. I have a question for Commissioner Kos. It's a simple question, not a simple question, but in what way is the Global Gateway related to initiatives for gradual integration? So giving candidate countries benefits to the internal market in order for reforms. Thank you very much.
It's a very good question because we started with gradual integration because there were more and more voices that we should integrate our candidate countries before they, in the EU structure, before they become a member, and it's really working well. Especially for this area, for instance, it's what is happening now on the field of energy is really huge. So we have developed for Moldova a program for 2 years for their independent and resilient energy system. The idea is, or the plan is, that the system in Moldova will be completely independent until the end of 2027. And why is this possible? It is a really Team Europe approach. First, we will avoid or stop Russia blackmailing the country. And secondly, it's also in our benefit. Secondly, we have done the same with Ukraine. There are huge projects, what is going on, how to ensure the energy independence from Ukraine. So this is very, very important. Then the so-called solidarity line is also one of the parts. The green lines in the Western Balkans, if I go further on, also very important. And what really means a lot, I was speaking about people, how SEPA is enabling people, doing the transactions without additional money needed, or roaming, what is now happening. So it is a lot we can do, and I'm happy that I always tell to member states or the other stakeholders, please come with ideas, because we can really do a lot. And very important, it is also in the benefits to us, citizens of the European Union.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. What I would now like to do is to ask our panelists for concluding thoughts, and I'll ask the Commissioner you will have the last word. So, Minister, please, is there anything you would like to contribute still at this juncture?
Maybe if we summarize what we have heard here is that what we have to do to prioritize the diversification of the routes, we have to make sure that redundancy in place and route diversification in place. And in order to do that, we have to put everything on all efforts together to make sure that the resilient infrastructure is available. But as we also heard here, that infrastructure is not enough, and we have to create the links in harmonizing our legislation when it comes to customs, to state border control. And also the most important thing, how we can do this from our perspective, is we have to try to digitalize everything. Because when you start digitalizing, you start knowing how you are doing things. If you take an example as any company, when the companies start digitalizing their processes, etc., they're starting knowing how they do the businesses. I mean, unfortunately, most of the companies, even the private companies, most of the time they don't know how the flow goes, even within the company. So it's even more important when things happening between the countries. When you start digitalizing all the processes, you start knowing when the papers are submitted from point A to point B, and at that point of time, you're starting to optimize the whole processes. So, from our perspective, and we have seen this in many examples, digitalization should be a cornerstone of all the processes.
Thank you very much for bringing the digital dimension into play. Odile, please.
Oh, sorry. No, I think the discussion really showed that with the war Russia launched on Ukraine, we have entered a new world. And what struck me, the interconnection between very short-term issues, you know, the discussion around solidarity lane, how to address the very short-term challenges, which was for Ukraine in 2022 to be able to sell, I mean, it has an impact also for the whole world to be able to sell its agriculture production and so forth very quickly. And I think that the capacity of Ukraine and the neighbor country, Romania, Moldova, EU partners to react was extremely important, and also to innovate. And I was thinking about, we talked a lot about infrastructure and trade. For example, we realized in Ukraine there were absolutely no insurance market to support logistics and transport of goods in the country. And with the help of the Commission and other donors, we put in place a new insurance instrument so as to kickstart again the market. So you need short-term solution to address the security and short-term challenges, but also long-term vision. And I think that the strategy and this approach of relying on the long-term vision plus partnership is absolutely what we need in order to come out stronger of this situation in the EU, but also in the whole region.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lund.
I think it's been a pleasure to elevate the discussion a little bit, at least for us in the industry. I think it's really sad that we need a war in Ukraine to make us understand that we need prosperity from ourselves and also for our neighbors, and also security. It's actually quite interlinked. We're actually pretty active in Ukraine ourselves and quite proud of, what can I say, the job we're doing there. And I also think if we frame it in a broader perspective, I also think some of us industry leaders have to also on the global gateway discussion here, we probably have to think about how we can participate even more, because at the end of the day it secures the long-term viability of our society and our businesses. So thank you for some good insights, and I'll surely carry them back to our company, but I think we should take it a little bit broader and see if we could get the industry more involved.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bulea, please.
Eu vreau să mulțumesc pentru oportunitatea de a participa la acest panel și vreau să vă spun că, din calitatea de ministru al infrastructurii, câteodată mă sperii de câte reforme am început în Republica Moldova și trebuie toate finalizate și duse până la bun sfârșit. Și eu am ferma convingere că interconectarea Republicii Moldova la tot sistemul de drumuri feroviar, de naval european, împreună cu Ucraina, are de câștigat toată regiunea bazinului Mării Negre, pentru că drumuri bune în Republica Moldova înseamnă că drumuri mult mai scurte, mai economice, mai puțină poluare de mediu, mai puțin timp pierdut pentru toți agenții economici. Asta înseamnă prosperitatea zonelor, asta înseamnă oameni care se întorc înapoi. Și indiferent de faptul că noi ne-am pus ca obiectiv în 28 sau până în 30 să devenim membri a Uniunii Europene, eu cred că interconectarea pe segmentul infrastructurii, a căilor ferate, a sistemului energetic, el trebuie să fie făcut mult mai rapid pe măsura în care el este posibil de făcut. Reformele toate trebuie să continuate, pentru că ele sunt extrem de importante și asta duce la dezvoltarea sustenabilă a Republicii Moldova, a Ucrainei și celorlalte state, pentru că noi privim unele state chiar membre a Uniunii Europene, unde reformele pe segmentul drepturilor omului, a libertăților nu s-au prea implementat și noi vedem chiar țări de zeci de ani membre a Uniunii Europene și au unele probleme. Așa că eu cred că continuarea reformelor, construcția, interconectarea trebuie să fie obiectivele pentru Republica Moldova și mulțumim de suportul Uniunii Europene în acest drum extrem de complicat și anevoios a Republicii Moldova. Mulțumim pentru suport.
Thank you very much. I heard you already referring to Moldova as an EU member state. Maybe it was the interpretation, but it's testament to your ambition. So finally, Commissioner Koss, your concluding remarks, please.
This is always good to hear, you know, this. I think that we are motivating both sides. You know, I'm motivating, I say, my candidate countries to do the reforms, and they are motivating me with the good results. And I agree, it's not always easy. But 5 points for the end. Through this Black Sea strategy, we are making new partnerships. Not every country wants or will be able to become a member of the EU, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have strong connections to them. And I see the Black Sea strategy exactly doing this, developing new partnerships. Second, it is a win-win. It is not just, if we invest in this area, in the infrastructure, that we are doing this for them, as some say. It is also doing for us. It is for our security, it is for our energy independence, and many more things. I'm very happy, and point number 3, what I have heard today from the businesses part. If we do it smart and right, the business will come and earn a lot of money. Wish you all the best. Fourth, thank you, Alona, for reminding us that it is also about the security. Europe is a peace project, meaning European Union is a security project. And I could draw somehow the parallels to how the EU has started. It has not started as a political idea. It was the idea, let's cooperate based on steel and coal. And I think that with this implication today, when we speak about connectivity and Black Sea strategy, we could, through the trade relations, through energy relations, digital, which is very much important, we could contribute really to peace and, of course, prosperity. And this is huge, meaning even if we speak about trade energy, it is much more than just trade and energy. And point number 5, and the last one, the EU is really doing some things very good, and I'm proud of this.
Thank you very much. Can we have a hand for the panelists? Thanks very much. That concludes our panel, and we wish you a good continuation today.